Hi everybody, I'm really excited about this video because this is going to be something a lot different than what we've done before. This is going to be a guided blind tasting of all of the peated Islay Scotches that we've had so far in this little series. And before we dive into the into the tasting, I just wanted to talk a little bit about it, and I guess going forward with any of these sorts of tastings or flights that we might do. I really like the idea of doing blind flights, and I think it'll be a lot of fun, but I'm really curious to know what you folks think. So with respect to whether it's worth doing in the future, if anything in the format needs to change, please give some thoughts as to what works and what doesn't work in this, because while I think this would be a lot of fun, if I want everyone to do blind tastings, it means everyone has to get a bigger share of the bottles that we're all going in on. And that means that there's going to be less people that can do it, and it's going to be more expensive for those that do. So if the reception to this is not favorable, or if it's lukewarm, I might lean more in favor of next time or future times having more people involved in these flights, but not do the blind tasting. So it's less expensive for the folks that do and more people get to do it. But if people really love the blind tastings, then hey, let's keep doing them, and we'll keep the number of people a little bit smaller. Nothing wrong with that. So with that being said, let's get to it. So I have 5 different Glens here in front of me. Each one has a different one of the scotches that we've tried so far. I have no idea what's in what. Liz poured these for me. I'm trying not to pay too much attention to the color, and it's been a little bit of time since I made the previous video, so I kind of forget what's what anyway. I warmed up with I think it's like a 43%. Yeah, this Highland Park 18 right here, 43%, nothing too crazy. It's lightly peated, so I thought it would be a good way to warm up the palate, but I'm also afraid that it's gonna burn my tongue with all this peat by the end of it and all the smoke, so we'll see. Maybe you'll have to warm up, maybe you won't, I don't know your palate, but also I really don't know, like the very first one I taste could end up being the highest ABV, most peated, who knows? I don't know because I didn't pour these. And at the end, we'll look at the list that Liz made, so we can find out what's what, try to rank these. I'm gonna be moving them up and down as I go forward. Just to try to keep in mind how I think they stack up to each other as I move along. I've done these sorts of things before, and the rankings change as I keep going through these. The way I'm going to do these tastings is something I've cribbed from this other YouTube channel called the Bourbon Junkies, and what they do, which I found really effective for me when I do blind tastings, is start on one side, take your time trying to get the notes from each one, go down the line, and then when you're done with it, go back the other way a little bit quicker to see how it pairs up, going in reverse order, coming from a different whiskey back to it, to see if that changes anything or brings out any notes, or if you pick up something different the second way back. And then when you get done doing that, just kind of compare different pairings that you didn't try back to back last time to see again if that brings out anything different. I've found that I kind of like going through the noses first and then going through the palate, so I'm going to start off that way. And all right, so let's give it a start here. Oh, and your bottles should all be marked A through E as well, just like these, so you can follow along. I'm not going to reveal what these are until the very end, just for those of you that are trying to truly do this blind. So if you want to, spoiler alert, and you just want to know what they are as you're going forward, skip toward the end of the video and I'll show you what each one of these are, and then you can go back and drink them knowing what they are. But for the rest of us, just keep playing the video and we'll figure it out. All right, so starting with glass A right here, let's give it a nose. So yeah, it's peat forward, it's spicy. I don't smell a whole lot of sweetness in it initially. It's almost like a peppery peat is what I'm picking up right now. B, wow, coming off of A. B it's almost got like a sour note to it, which I don't remember picking up on anything like that in any of the prior tastings that we did. Really, really light peat coming on compared to A at least. Yeah, like a briny or a sour note on the nose there. That's interesting. Oh, and C is like sweet and savory at the same time. a little smokier peat, not super smoky, but it leans more toward smoke than any kind of brininess or like medicinal quality. That's probably my favorite nose so far. And these ones, yeah, maybe A is a little bit better for me than B. Let's go on to D. Wow, this one is, it's gonna sound weird, but it's almost like a dank wood or something. Like very, very, it smells almost like mud, like grassy mud, like you're on an old football field in the rain and you get a lot of that muddy grass, you know, on your cleats or something like that. With some smoke there too, but that first pang I got was that grassy mud. But I kind of like it. It's kind of cool. That might be right behind C for me. I don't know. All right, on to D. Oh, weird. This one is like almost like a stale bread. That's really odd. I don't know that I'm picking up much smoke on this one at all. Yeah, like a stale bread note. So one thing that I think is pretty cool about doing these sorts of blind tastings is, especially with peated scotches, I wasn't sure how this would go because I've never done a blind tasting with peated scotches before, but as you go through this, because they're all peated and they all have some smoky quality to an extent, trying them back to back, it's almost like the smoke becomes background. Like you don't, I'm not picking up on that as I go through this really. I'm just picking up on the notes that separate them, that are away from the smoke, or the differences between them. Hopefully you're doing that sort of thing too, but it's pretty cool. Okay, so I think I know about where they stand. Now let's try tasting them. You know what we're all here for. Back to A. So it's briny. It's got a really good mouthfeel. It's oily. Not too thick, but yeah, oily. So it's briny taste, oily mouthfeel. Coats the mouth well and then kind of thins out. And this is more of a sweet peat. I didn't pick up on that on the nose, but it is a sweeter smoke that I'm getting on it, more toward the back palate. Try again. I might have not paid enough attention to, you know, the front palate on that one, but I'm not getting as much of the brininess. I just feel like my mouth's kind of coated lightly and in a sweet smoke. That's the best way to put it. And the smokiness isn't too strong, not too punchy. But it starts out sweet at front and then the smoke kind of comes later. I like it. I could drink that a lot. I'll pause for 1 second, get some water. On to B. Yeah, weird nose on this one. I think I'm picking up more malt on this than like the mid palate. The peat's there. It's not as in your face, I don't think, as A. But the peat and maybe like a fruity almost smokiness kind of lingers with me in the finish. It's almost like this is sherried a little bit, which would be a little odd. Because I'm getting almost like a raisiny note in the finish. And it does smell a little funky. You definitely get the peat, but I'm getting some weird funk on it that's it's a woody funk, and I don't know if it could be from the sherry note. I don't know. It's good, it's just kind of weird. All right, let's taste it again. I really like that a lot better. It really is sweet and tastes, I swear, almost like a sherried Scotch at first. And then the smoke is really just kind of what, no, the smoke and the sweetness stays. That's really good. I like this one a lot. All right, don't want to taste too much of it just yet. All right, let's clear the palate a little bit. And on to C. This one on the second go around has almost like a bourbon quality in it. And a lot of these are probably finished in ex-bourbon casks. So that makes sense, but it's really coming through on the nose for me right now. So that's definitely more savory. And wow, That is like campfire smoke. Jeez, that just like billowed. It felt like into my mouth after the finish. It's all I'm left with really is just smoke. It's like almost ashy. The closest toward like campfire or ashy so far, but then there's that hint of like a medicinal quality to it as well. And a little grassiness actually. Yeah, the finish isn't too bad after a while, but it is almost overpowering at first. Let's try it again. That almost numbs the tongue. Might be the highest ABV we've had so far. I can't really tell between that and a peat which one's kind of prickling my tongue, or both. I'm not sure. Yeah, and then that heat really kicks in on the tongue afterward when you're feeling that smoke. You know, and that might be one reason why all I'm tasting is smoke, just because the peat in combination with the ABV can have almost like an anesthetic effect, like a numbing effect, which is why I think it's good to have a little bit of water in between, and I might take a little bit of a break before I go back. But this one definitely is it tastes to me so far like it has the heaviest smoke by a pretty large margin compared to the first two. All right, on to D. Yeah, sweeter, smells very grassy. And on the palate, it's a lot lighter. A hint of smoke, not really much. I mean, you know, it's a peated Scotch. It's definitely more smoke than like that Highland Park that I warmed up with. Like, it is not a lightly peated Scotch. It's a peated Scotch, but it seems like it might be the lightest of the ones we've had so far. Maybe that's just coming off of a C, which was really a smoke bomb. But I get almost like it's like a prickly pear flavor initially, and then, you know, like a soft or like a white stone fruit, or I don't know if a pear is a stone fruit. It tastes like a pear. And before the smoke comes, and the smoke is really light. Let's give it another taste. Yeah, it's like a little bit more of like some peach notes on the nose. Yeah, it starts out a little, I guess more full-bodied or stronger flavor, but then gets a little bit lighter. I think into that pear note in the mid-palate or the finish. I'm not picking up the grassiness that I initially got on the nose. I like it. I feel like when we come back to that, there might be more to that one. And now E, the last one. And I should have mentioned, I'm doing my very best not to try to think about any of the particular bottles that we've had so far. Like, I'm not trying to guess what's what with any of these. Like, I might have an idea as we go through. And if I get to a point where I think I'm pretty sure one of these is a particular bottle, I'll probably let you know, just because that might be like biasing how I rank it. But really, I just want to get an idea of what I like the best. Hopefully you're getting an idea of what you like the best. So apart from, you know, the big names and what's the most expensive, you could figure out, you know, truly what you enjoy. And hopefully it is just, you know, the cheapest one that you can find every day. You know, probably not, but maybe. So we'll see. Okay, on to E. Ooh, this has like a, yeah, now it's like a sour note. The breadiness is like not quite as strong as it was the first go around, but it's definitely sour. Now there's the bread. Yeah, that's weird. All right, let's try it. And it's there on the palate too. That is weird. That is so weird. It's getting a touch of like that raisiny note, like there might be a little bit of sherry finish on here. I don't know that I like this one. I feel like this is one of those scotches. Every now and then there's whiskeys that on their own they taste fantastic, and in a blind, just because they're so different than other whiskeys that you pair them with, they do really, really poorly, even though it's a really quality whiskey. Like for bourbons, Four Roses for me, I absolutely love Four Roses. Pretty much, well, almost any Four Roses you can find, but it always does really, really poorly for me in blinds because it's tasting it against other bourbons brings out this herbal quality that just tastes weird and kind of off-putting when you've been coming from other bourbons that have more, I guess, traditional flavor profiles. And so it's almost off-putting when it's in the context of these other drinks. I think that's what's happening with E with me right now, because I'm just getting like a stale bread note on the nose and the palate. like it's heading toward a maltiness and then it just falls flat. There's a little bit of sweetness on the finish, like a touch, but it's like a stale raisin bread sourdough where they only sprinkled like 2 raisins in there. That's the yeah, pretty proud of that note. That's the best way I can describe this. Not really a fan so far. Okay, I'm gonna take a little bit of a break, drink some water, let my mouth kind of, you know, get some feeling back, and go back through the other way, and then pair some up to taste them against each other. So, see you in a sec. Let's go E through A. Okay, not as bready, you know, being the first one I've had in the smell in a while. That's good. I'm getting more sweetness. Maybe like that raisiny, not quite to a plum level, like sherryness. But maybe that's just the malt, like sweet malt, not really sure. Let's taste it. Yeah, I think that is just really malt forward and not a lot of smoke. It's good, it's sweet. It's like it's almost like reminds me of like a fortified like wine from like a white grape, right? Or, you know, that's not red, like a sweet wine. Good. Oh, there's the smoke, a little bit on the back. Not very much, kind of one note. A really easy sipper, I think. But I don't know that it'll measure up to these. All right, let's keep going. On to D. A lot more going on. Ooh, that smells delicious. Super sweet and savory at the same time. Oh, yeah, that smells really good. Out of nowhere. It's crazy how coming off of a different whiskey can just like completely change it, because I don't remember D blowing my mind, but this is awesome. All right, let's taste it again. That dances back and forth between sweet and savory a lot. It's got a good mouthfeel. It's really punchy. A little bit of heat came on the back though, on the back palate. It made it hard to pick out the flavors. And now as it's settling down, I'm able to pick out some of those notes a little bit more. But man, before that ABV really kicked in for a sec, this was really, really good. I like that one a lot more, kind of back the other way. Okay, try C again. Okay, now compared to that one, compared to both of these, this one definitely has more of a medicinal quality than those two did. But that's me fighting through smoke to try to find some other note. And I fought through smoke, got to some medicinal. So let's see what it tastes like. Maybe not, maybe it's savory now, I don't know. Very sweet on the front palate, like the tip of your tongue. If you let it glide over the tip of your tongue and you focus on that for a second, or maybe I wouldn't let it rest too long or it'll get numb, but you know, give it some time there and then focus on it. Very sweet. And then it's this sweet smoke. The smoke really comes at you, but then you're left with both the sweetness and the smoke. So I think I'm picking up on a lot more sweetness this time around. Moving on to B. Really different nose. Briny, very briny. Yeah, like seaweed. Let's taste it. Yeah, front palate, briny. Mid palate, sweet. A little anesthetic, medicinal. I'm finally picking up on that. Maybe I'm paying more attention. And then into smoke. Some grassiness, but it's light at the end. Light in the finish, not overpowering. I like it. A lot going on. Yeah, not savory beyond the brininess, the like sort of seaweed flavor, I don't think. But you do get that, you get sweet, you get smoke, and they blend. And a little bit of that medicinal and grassy. There's a lot going on with this one. I like that it's so complex for sure. Kind of see how it measures up to other ones though. In A. Stale. It smells stale right off the bat. Weird. So there's some brininess there. Not picking up a lot of smoke this time. don't think I picked up a ton initially, but not much at all. There's a sweetness at the end, but leaning more toward brininess than E did. I think E, the second time around especially, I picked up on some more sweetness. This is sort of the opposite, leaning into like more of a bitter brininess, but then with sweetness. I'm not going to film and like talk through like me comparing each one of these to each other. What I'd recommend you do is, you know, pair up ones that weren't paired up already going each way, just so you can try to pick out different flavor notes like I talked about initially. You know, the first thing that comes to mind now is like, oh, I'm picking up some similarities from A and E, but I bet if I try them one against each other, they're going to taste a lot different. So that's what I'm definitely going to do, and then try to work my way through a couple of these just to pull out some additional notes to get a better understanding of each one of these and how I like them, if there's things I pull that I like or things I pull that I dislike, and then try to get to a point where I'm like, okay, just comparing them head to head to see which ones I like better once I get more of an idea as to, you know, what the bottom ones might be and the top ones might be. So I'm gonna do that now. It's really tough a lot of the times. I feel like I'm gonna have a very tough time with this one. Best of luck to you though. Where I ended up, last place for me was E. Going back and forth mainly between E and A. I just kept going to that stale bread note, there not being a whole lot to it, and you know, there it was. At the end of the day, it was just less peaty, I think, than a lot of the other ones, and I think that was what sealed the deal between E and A to me. Is if I'm going to go for a peated Islay Scotch, or any peated Scotch for that matter, E would really never be what I'm looking for. It was a lot more malt forward. I think that's what I was picking up on when I was getting that like raisiny bread note. Compared to these peated ones, it's just, it stood apart as not being smoky enough for me. So I wouldn't turn to this, so it was last place. And then A, it was really just like a little bit better than E to me, but these two, A and E, were in a different class to me than the other three. C started off as last of the three for me. I was going back and forth like, okay, what's it closest? Like, it's closest to B. Like, which one's better? And then I decided, okay, C is way too punchy, add a little bit of water to it. I think it was just like 2 drops because I had barely any left. And I gave it some time, and oh my gosh, it completely changed it. The sweetness turned into like this pineapple-y note. It was really good. It still had a strong smoke finish, but the water softened that up a little bit, and it wasn't terribly complex, but it became a lot better, and that did push it above B. So B ends up in third for me, and then I was going back and forth between B and D for a really long time, and because B did have that harsh like ABV punch, and even with, I eventually added a drop of water to D when I had barely any left, and it still had that more than C did, but there was maybe a touch more complexity to D, and just those initial flavors I am just a lot more like partial to. Really savory notes and sweet notes. So there we have it. Rankings from last to first. We have E, A, B, C, D for me. If I had to guess, I'd say E is the Bowmore, A the Laphroaig, B the Lagavulin, C the Octomore, and then D the Ardbeg Ugadale.
Get a life loser.
Let's find out. Starting with last place, E, the Bowmore 12. Last place for me. Maybe it finished a little bit higher for you. I'm actually really interested in how these did for you. So if you liked them in a different order than I did, like leave a comment, let us know. I think it'd be really fun just to see how different people's palates are. It's crazy how different people's tastes are. But for me, last place, E, Bowmore 12. Going on to second to last for me, the Laphroaig. Third place, the Lagavulin 12. And the winner, for me, of the peated Islay Scotches is the Ardbeg Ugadale in first place with the Octomore 12.2 coming in second. I'm stoked that I got them all right, and I think I'm stoked with the order that it turned out in, and I'll tell you why. We all paid a lot of money for these two, at least, you know, in my tasting, they ended up, you know, coming out closer to the top. The best news though that I think is that if you're like me and you really prefer the Ardbeg Uigeadail, you can find this at just about any liquor store, and there's actually a few spots you can find this online that will end up being a lot cheaper for you than any liquor store that you can find around here. So if you also enjoyed this one the most, let me know and I can direct you to the best place to go to find one. If you liked either one of these the most, the Octomore, the Lagavulin, well, I'm sorry to say, you're probably not going to be able to find this. And the Lagavulin 12, you know, it was at some of the bigger chain liquor stores for a little while. It might still be at a couple of them, but I really don't know. They're both limited releases, so they're harder to find. I hope this was a lot of fun for you, but let me know. Again, I really want your feedback for this. It's going to shape how we do these things in the future. And oh, before I forget, announcement time. The next set of whiskeys that we're all going to try, if you choose to be a part of it, they're going to be bourbons that are all 10 to 12 years old. So aged bourbons, the expectation is that they're going to have more oak influence. Every single one of them is great. Let me know if you're interested. I'll reach out to everyone about the next one, the bourbon one, because I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Thanks for tuning in so far. Hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know, and I'll see you all around.